So a few minutes ago I was doing some sanding and I got a little lazy, sloppy, and I lost track of my wire. And what happened was the wire for my sander got caught up in the sanding belt. Didn't notice it. As you can see, I was sanding for a little while with that in there, but as a result this is what we now have. So my tutorial on how to remove a high spot from some boards has shifted into how to repair a wire on your power tool, and this will apply to any power tool. The first thing I want to do is I want to see if I can differentiate one wire from the other, because a lot of times manufacturers will coat the wires in the same material, so I need to be able to connect them in the same way that they were connected. Now in this case I'm very lucky in that we have a black coated wire and a white coated wire, so once I cut them I'll be able to tell them apart very easily. If that were not the case, I might have to mark them in some ways, if there were two black wires for example, to make sure that I connect the right black wire to the appropriate black wire. So first thing I do, cut out the offending damaged piece. Now I need some working area. As you can see, we now have two clean sections of wire. I'm going to strip the outer coating back to be able to have a working area. As I do that, I want to make sure that I don't send the knife into either of the electrical wires. It's also worth mentioning here that I have already unplugged this unit. You do not want to be doing this sort of work on a live wire. So I'm going back about an inch, peeling the casing back. I'm going to go a little further. I want some more space to work with. I'm going to go back about 1.5 inches. Peeling everything back. Now it's interesting, on these older wires, this is an older sander, they actually had twine on the inside to give it some stability and strength. I'm going to cut off everything back at that 1.5 inch mark except for the two wires. Now if you have modern equipment, you might have actually 3 wires that would include a ground, but this is an older piece and so it only has the 2. Got them cut far enough back that I can work with them, being careful that I don't cut the electrical wires as I go, and then I do the same thing on the other end of the wire, going back 1.5 inches, a little further. So now what I have are 2 exposed wires. It's fairly thin on the inside, so I'm now going to use some wire strippers. And these have various sized holes. So I'm going to start with the biggest one and work my way back until I find what I want. What I'm trying to do here is remove the outer coating and expose the copper wire on the inside. So choose a larger hole, much larger than I think I'm going to need. Give it some twist, see if it'll pull off, and it won't. Go to the next one in. I want to pull off about 1/2 inch of the coating. Nope, still hasn't cut all the way through. I can look, I can see it starting to, but not quite there. So I'll go to the next one. There we go. So in this case, we're at 18 gauge. There we go. Exposed copper wire. It's not cutting any of the copper, so I know it's not too small. Do the same thing on the other side, go right to the 18 gauge. And then do the same thing on the other wire. Now that they're exposed, I want to be a little careful that I don't damage those wires, because they're easier to work with when they're in that clean, tight state. Again, about 1/2 inch. And same thing on the second side. Now they do make a crimp that is not quite as ugly as the way I'm going to do this, but I am on the site and I don't have any of those crimps here, and so we're going to do it the ugly yet effective way. I take the two white wires, place them together, and I don't wind them too tightly together, and I take a cap and put them in. Wind it in place. I need a smaller one. I don't know if I have a smaller one. This one. I was intending to use these yellow caps, which are a little bit larger, but it was too loose. Luckily I have some of the smaller appliance size orange ones, so I'll go back to the idea of winding these together. That's tight. Do just a small wind so that they stay close, and then put the orange cap on, twist it in place. Now once it's in place, I want to make sure that it's all tight. Now as you can see, it's sort of ugly, but these wire caps are really important because it's going to hold it in place. I would not use just electrical tape, it's not going to hold. And when you have electricity running through something, an appliance or a tool that's going to be moving around, you want to be absolutely sure that this is going to stay in place. As I said earlier, this is going to be the ugly version. I'm going to use the electrical tape to hold everything down. If you have some of the crimps that are a little, it's going to create less of a lump. But what's important here is that I have a tool in which the wires are going to stay together. I'm going down about 2 inches to ensure that the electrical tape will hold it in place and then the wire nuts will stay there. Now if I pull it back and apply a little bit of pressure, the tape is going to stretch. You can't use too much tape. You want this to stay in place. Now, when this is being used, it's going to look like so. Not pretty, but it will stay in place, and it is safe to use in this fashion. Testing it out. Plugged in. We have power. It's going to hold. Hope you enjoyed this impromptu video of repairing a wire on location for your power tools, and it works in all sorts of wires as well. I hope you found this video useful. Feel free to like the video, subscribe, maybe even share it with a friend or two. Thanks for watching.